Everybody. Welcome to another special episode of Style by God, Style for a Purpose. This is your girl Ra Ra, and today I am here with my guest host, Keith Vincent Carter.
How you doing?
So again, I am switching seats to be interviewed today. Today is a special Father's Day dedication, so I'm going to be sharing about, my life, my story with my father, and since he passed away last year in 2017, so I just wanted to dedicate this special segment to him because he was indeed special, and there's a lot I gained from him as a result that I see coming out of me now with Style by God. So we just want to go ahead and get started.
All right, awesome. So I'm privileged to have the opportunity to do the interview. I saw the Mother's Day segment, which was really good. I just think that it will provide a lot of answers, I think, to a lot of people who cope, especially when they lose a parent.
Yeah.
Maybe be a little more introspective for if you still have your parent, to respect them a little bit more, to, I guess, really cherish those relationships.
Right.
So that's what I got out of the first segment.
Okay.
And so I'm really, honored to do this segment as well.
Okay.
Fathers get beat up a little bit. So it's really an awesome thing when you get to talk to people who really can appreciate their father and the impact that they've made. So again, thank you for having me on the show.
You're welcome. And I guess I should share how I know Keith. Our relationship is we both serve on the administration team for the World Changers Bible School. So he is my colleague.
That's right.
Via World Changers Bible School. So I am honored to have him as my guest host today.
Thank you so much. All right, like you said, let's get started. So I mean, the easiest way to kind of get into it is just tell us a little bit more about your family in general, mom and dad and everybody that's a part of it. And I think that'll kind of nicely segue into everything else.
Okay. Yeah, so my family, I have, and we have an interesting dynamic.
Don't we all?
Yes.
Don't we all?
But it's still, I'm blessed to have the family that I have. I'm blessed to have my siblings, myself and my brother Brian.
Okay.
And then there was his second marriage, and from that marriage came my brothers Damien and Derek. And then through his third marriage, there came my baby brother Montre.
Dad cared about love, didn't he?
Yes. And then we also have my lovely sister, Leslie.
Awesome.
Yes. So, so there's 4 boys, 2 girls.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's nice. Nice little group. That's nice. I mean, you kind of need, in those families, you have these little factions and things like that. You kind of gravitate toward that little bunch. So 6, that's a good number.
Yeah,
that's a good number.
Yeah. So, and through it all, I say that I'm blessed because we're still together, close, stay connected, and there's definitely, we're there for each other.
Right.
No matter what comes up. And speaking of that, we not only lost my father and my mother, but also in 2016, my youngest brother, Montre, his mother passed. So we been through a lot,
That's right.
as far as losing our parents.
That's right.
So it's just been boom, boom, boom. So, but through it all, we've been there for each other, regardless.
That's good.
Yeah, it is good. It's a blessing.
In terms of that family dynamic, could you tell us a little bit more about the relationship between your father and your mom in terms of that dynamic?
That dynamic is interesting because they were high school sweethearts, and my dad was, this was, like I said, this was his first marriage.
Right.
So I think at that time when they got married, he was still trying to figure things out.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So, you know, after the birth of my brother and I, they weren't together that long. I think I was maybe about 5 when my father left.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was about 5 years old. So, my mom, she really didn't, and that's one of the things you think about, especially after they passed, because my mother didn't talk about it much.
Right.
She didn't talk about, I really don't know how they met. I don't know the story of how they met, how they fell in love and all that. I don't know that. And it's kind of like, wow. You know, you think back on things like that now and you're like, you know, I wish I had sat down and had that conversation.
And it's just interesting, right? I mean, I asked that question because, like we talked, my dad passed a few years ago. And my parents had been divorced for quite some time. And he fell ill. And I didn't think there was a relationship there at all. But, you know, the most interesting thing was my mom saying, I wish I knew he was ill and couldn't take care of himself. I was shocked that she was saying I would have helped him.
Wow.
After all those years and all the different things that come along with that. So, you know, it's just amazing that connection is still there regardless of how it ends.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that because, you know, my mom passed away 2 weeks after my father passed. And even though they had been divorced for years, what I found out, I guess the following morning after my mother passed, my cousin stayed with me at the house, and she stayed there, and she just went in my mom's room and just cleaned up everything and got everything organized. And that morning we were sitting down in the living room talking, and she said, by the way, she said, when I was cleaning up your mom's bed, I lifted up the pillow and your father's obituary was under her pillow.
Wow.
And I was just...
And you can't... you can't process it.
Right.
The things that they're going through. At those times. And the reflections and the things they think about. So it's really an interesting thing. That's why I'm glad you kind of brought that up for me to ask that question. So tell us a little bit more about him.
My father. My father, he was just such my niece getting okay. He was just a cool, laid back dude. I mean, he just like I said, he was a music legend. So everybody knew him. He performed in several bands in our town, and later on became known as a very well-known, popular local DJ. He would DJ at all the events, a lot of events in our town.
And what was the name of the band? For the audience?
There was Silopana. Silopana, which is I grew up in Annapolis, Maryland. So Silopana is Annapolis spelled backwards.
Oh wow, okay.
Silopana.
That's interesting in itself.
The Pipe Dreamers.
Okay.
I think that was the first one, I think. Yeah. See, this is where I need my brothers.
Right.
The Pipe Dreamers, and then Silopana. Oh boy. And then right now, what I can remember later on, he went into performing with a gospel group called the the Silver Tones.
The Silver Tones.
And then there was another group after that.
Oh wow!
I can't think of the name right now, but
so you were telling me about him and his past, and I was so intrigued by it. Right. So tell us a little bit more about that. That whole musical background and all that kind of stuff.
Yes. So he played. I'm trying to think. He played several. He was keyboardist. I think mainly a keyboardist.
Okay.
And he. They performed. I remember when I was very young. I was probably a toddler or even before I was born. There was this popular place in my hometown called Carr's Beach. It's a beach.
Carr's Beach.
So all the local, I mean not local, but popular acts back in the day, like the Motown acts, would come there and perform. And so my father and their band, they would also perform there as well, you know, when those groups came to town. So so they would perform. I don't know much about how often, but my father, he loved being on stage. He loved music.
Okay.
He loved entertaining. It was just a part of him.
And so because of that background, in terms of how he interacted with you guys in the family, did that come across as well? That he was just, you know, outgoing and just, you said he was laid back, but also just that confidence probably that he had to have in order to be a performer.
Exactly. He was very confident, and it also came through in his style.
Okay.
So his style was definitely a part of it, because what I found out later.
Now, because what time frame was this?
What his style?
Around the time, 70s or 80s?
Oh yeah, 70s, 80s, 90s.
They had some style, Jack.
Oh yeah,
some style.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to establish that because when you start talking about style and clothing, that was the thing.
It was. It definitely was. Yeah, 70s, and he had the fro back in the day. Yeah, so. Of course, the ladies love that, you know. And I had this one photo. One of the photos, I think, that's in the promo I did in the promo video with the band Silipana, and he has his shirt off.
Oh,
and big fro, but anyway,
he was put them shoulders out there.
But what I found out later, which I never knew, was that he picked out the outfits for the band.
Okay,
so
he had a great sense of style.
Right. Yeah,
that's
he
good.
Definitely did.
And so you feel like that,
I definitely
inherently, you came with that.
Yeah.
That sense of style, that's what led you to. Okay.
Exactly. Because I definitely, my brothers, they were the ones that got the music gene. Okay. Okay. My sister and I, we got the style.
The style gene. Okay.
And my brothers, they got the music gene. And we were kind of jealous about that part because we feel like if we can style and sing and play instruments and do music, we would be.
We could have been a little Janet and LaToya in here too.
Yes, exactly.
They got a little something.
We sometimes joke about that too. We had this little inside joke between us that we're the Jacksons, and we're actually the Jacksons, and so we talk about who's going to be who, when it comes to the Jacksons. But yeah,
I can see that. I can totally see that. So you kind of got into it. You know, I want to ask more about the influence and the impact that he had on you and your brothers. So you kind of got into that a little bit by saying, hey, we got the style, the daughters, and then the sons had the influence of music.
Right.
So what are some of the other things that made a great influence, great impact on the siblings and yourself?
Well, I think it was just his way of being himself. And he wasn't afraid to speak up and let his voice be heard. Okay. You know, if he had to say something, he would say he would get it off his chest. And
any one of the siblings took that gene or had that trait?
My gosh. Yeah. My sister.
Your sister took that. Okay.
Yeah, she definitely. Yeah,
we have.
She doesn't hesitate.
The daughter here.
And
so she certainly raised her hand. My mom.
Yeah, Leslie. That's why.
That's good. All right.
And let's
which
see.
Every family has to have one.
Right.
Every family has to have. It's kind of like the spokesperson or the person that will let you hear the inner conversation. Right. They don't mind telling it at some point in time, and that's always good. It's healthy. You have to have it.
Exactly. So yeah, she definitely got that. My brothers, I'm trying to think. They're kind of. My brothers are kind of mellow compared to what my dad was. The youngest one, there, Montre, he's a lot like my dad.
So they got a little bit more of the laid back gene that you said. Okay.
Yeah. They do.
Now the younger one raps right?
Yes,
Okay.
Montre.
So he got
raps.
a little bit more of a. Okay.
Exactly. So he's a professional rapper. So in 2016, he won the national rap contest, the Freestyle 50 Challenge.
The Freestyle 50 Challenge.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So and it was held right here in Atlanta.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So he was in competition then.
Right.
Yeah, that's impressive.
And he came here and took the prize.
Oh, that's big time.
Yeah. Yeah. So so he's definitely got it in his blood,
Right?
You know, to go on and be.
And you were telling me he is the one who really wants to use it as that gift as a career,
right?
And a career path. I mean,
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, he definitely was, and he's taking it to the next level, you know. So,
do you guys often get a chance to just talk about Dad, you know, among yourselves, the things you admire and all those type of things?
You know, we really, while we were together during his passing, is when we had that moment of just, you know, sharing. Because when we found out, we had like 3 days notice, maybe. Yeah. So it was like, I was already there in Maryland.
In Maryland. Okay.
When we got the news. So, so 3 of my siblings already there, and then my other brother Derek and my sister Leslie, they're here in Georgia.
Okay.
Along with me. So we had to tell them the news so they could get up here in time. And so during that time we would share, definitely when we were in the hospital room, just sitting there, and old band members would come by to visit, and they would share things that we didn't know. Like I was going to found out about him being the stylist for the band.
That's right.
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing the things that come after they pass.
Right.
Because then you get to talk to friends,
right?
Business associates,
exactly.
And basically you get to experience them through the stages of their life,
right?
When you get a chance to talk to their friends,
right?
And you know, we have a lot in common in that way. My dad lived in Maryland as well. That's where he passed also.
Okay.
So it was like that for me, just getting the opportunity to. I didn't know the man owned a clothing store or shoe store. I didn't know that. You start thinking, you know, like, wow, this is a lot of stuff that come at you, right? That allow you to really admire them a little bit more, because they're complex people, right? Growing up, it's just mom and dad, but you realize, just like yourself, you know, you wear a lot of hats, so there's a lot of complexity. So out of that complexity that you knew about him, and then you learned about him, and still there's opportunities to learn more about him through other family members and friends.
Right.
What is the thing you think you most admired about him?
I think I most admire his creativity.
Creativity.
Yeah. Because it not only manifested through his music and his style, but he also did this thing at one point where he was taking he would purchase these magazines. They were very high-end magazines that had photos or images of entertainers.
Okay.
And he would take those magazines and actually cut those images out and frame them.
Okay.
And he had them hanging in his room with his music.
So he loved the industry.
Yes, he did.
And everything about it.
He did everything about it. And he was actually featured in the local newspaper for that.
Okay.
For doing that. But he never gave up on his dream of his love for music. He just, in whatever way he could be involved in it, that's what he did.
Right.
He was also a radio DJ for a local radio station, so he did that. And like I said, he also performed, you know, after his days of being with the secular bands. He went on
Came back to the church.
Came back to the church.
To the church. But you know, the thing about the music that they performed at that time, lyrically, it was so strong. So if we had an opportunity, if you look at what the church is today and look at the music in terms of content and the lyrics, they'll really appreciate the type of music that they did back then. I mean, the deep, introspective.
Right.
If they sang about love, it was love.
It was love.
So
yeah, love.
it's funny. Most of the folks out of that time had some connection with God or came from the church at that time anyway.
Right.
So it was only fitting for him to come. So how did he deal with that transition?
I really don't. I know there was a point in his life where he was just going through some things, and I think this was, after his second marriage. So he had gone to stay with some relatives in St. Louis.
Okay.
We have cousins there, and they went to church quite a bit.
Okay.
So it was there that he got saved. And then I remember him when he came back, and he came to see my brother and I, and he sat us down and had a talk with us and told us that we needed to get saved. And I remember looking.
Were you shocked by that when he?
I was
okay.
like, okay, this is new.
Like, where did this come from?
Right. And but I remember telling him that I was like, okay, I'm like, and we call my father Mac,
Okay.
And I was like, Mac, but I was like, I'm not ready yet.
Okay. That's
I
good.
didn't know then what I know now.
Right.
But that was my answer.
So that was interesting.
Yeah. And he tried to, he was like, you
need to get it together.
Right. He was like,
it was you and another brother?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did the brother receive it?
I'm trying to remember I think he just sat there and he was like, just listening and hearing what he said, but
okay.
I don't remember him ever
making a decision at that time.
Right. He just
right. Mac,
so we just
I'll think about it.
Right.
So how
really
did he get that? How did he get that nickname too? And then we'll come back to that too, since you brought that up.
Well, his middle name is Matthew.
Matthew.
And from Matthew, it went from Matt to Mac.
Right.
So I think friends just, they just...
All it took was one dude to mishit that thing.
Yeah.
And Mac just seemed like it might just fit better.
Yeah.
Because of the style.
I don't know. Then with my dad, he might have chosen himself with his creative mindset. He might have said, you know what, Mac would be really cool.
With Mac.
Let's go with Mac.
Now, did he use that as a moniker or kind of his nickname through his
yeah. That's what he was known as. He was known as Mac C.
Mac C.
Yeah.
Okay. That was good.
Yeah.
So coming back to that moment when he gave his life to Christ, he's talking to you guys about it. When you did give your life to Christ, did you think about that moment?
I did.
That you had with it?
I did.
Okay. How long from that talk to when you actually gave your life? Like, look, I'm not ready. I mean, I'm really not ready.
Right.
Give me a decade.
Actually... Oh my God, that's funny. That is funny. Let me see. How long? Look at my She is cracking up.
You don't have to think about it. But to your point, when you did give your life to Christ, you thought about that. So how did that, work with whoever was leading you or your introspection? When did you, not the time, but how did you begin to think about it and reflect on that encounter that he had? 'Cause that's a big encounter.
It is a big encounter, and it's just like you look back and you think about. I think about, how I responded to him when he approached me about it, and what my answer was at that time, that I wasn't ready. And I looked back on it, I was like, wow, how naive I was to say that I wasn't ready. Yeah, like, it's not about that. It's not about. Let me get myself together.
It's not a bad answer, right? Because it's one of those things that we have to make that choice ourselves. So it's as good an answer as any when you can't connect it all, right? So
yeah.
So that's a good thing. And I mean, since then, I mean, you've led people to Christ. I mean, you work at the church, at the Bible school. I mean, so
right.
That's an awesome thing.
Right.
So was he patient with you?
He was.
Okay, good.
Yeah. He was very patient with me. As far as me, it was like in his eyes I could do no wrong.
Right. That is good.
I could
Right.
Yeah. I could
Okay.
do no wrong. So yeah. So I was definitely a daddy's girl, and his face would always light up whenever I walked in the room or came to visit him. And my father, he was just, when I would come to visit him, the music was always playing.
Okay.
And to this day, my love for music comes from that. He'd be sitting there with his equipment on, and music's just spinning, just playing.
All the time.
All the time.
In terms of genre and just his love for music, was it vast? Or was it focused like R&B, or did he cover like a lot?
It was vast, but mostly R&B, the smooth jazz, and gospel. And he introduced me to a variety of gospel that had different sound to it, a more upbeat sound to it, almost secular sounding. Yeah.
And
I was really into that. I was like, ooh.
Secular. This is bad. It's still gospel.
Right. I was like, oh, they got music like this out there. So
Right.
So that really drew me in.
My head nod just is a little bit deeper with it. It's still gospel.
Right.
For anybody that's still warring with that, it's still gospel.
Right. It's still gospel. That's
still
right.
gospel.
It's still the word.
So we were talking about having an opportunity for the siblings to maybe chime in on some of the things they most admired about him.
Yes.
Do we want to check and see if anyone has chimed in?
Okay. So my brother's on. My brother Derek is on.
Okay.
Hey, bro. So, okay, bro, Kiki's going to try to patch you in. Oh, okay. Derek, look on your screen, and there should be an option there for you to send a request to join us.
Okay.
I know these things can be funny sometimes.
All right.
Because it's not doing what we want.
Right. It's not. Yeah.
Well, while we wait on him,
Yeah.
On the behalf, I know we talked also that some would just send you some feedback as well. Was
Right,
there any sibling that gave you some feedback that they wanted to say?
Yeah. Well, my father, he was comical. He
Okay.
he could just do stuff out the blue. So my brother said he was with my father one day. They had gone out to the mall, and my father I'm just laughing when I haven't even got to it yet. My father pulled into a handicapped parking space, and my brother said that there was a cop sitting out in front, and so so my brother said, "The neck, we can't park here."
Right.
This is handicapped.
It's one thing to do it when there's no fuzz around.
Right.
It's another thing to eyeball the authority and still do it.
So my father said, this is so funny. So my father said, "Oh, son, don't worry about that." He's like, "Come on."
Uh-oh.
So they got out the car, and my father starts walking like he's handicapped into the mall.
Parents often challenge children's integrity. It happens a lot. It happens a lot. You be like, that kind of goes
And
with
I can
things
picture
you taught me.
Yeah, and I can picture, because knowing my father, he probably really exaggerated.
He put it in. He was an
He put
entertainer.
it all into it.
Right.
Yeah. And so my brother said we went into the store at the mall. He said we parked right in front of the store. So we walked into the store. He said we were in there no longer than 10 minutes. And
Right.
he said, and we had to come right back out. So he said when we came back out, the cop was still sitting there.
So I can imagine him putting on, get inside the store, just as normal and healthy as could be. Then he coming out, and the brother was a scout to let him know the cop is still out there?
I don't know. I guess my father knew he was probably going to still be out there since they were
Okay.
So he said, so when they walked back out, my brother said he looked at the cop and he yelled, "Vietnam!"
Who yelled? Did Dad yell?
Yeah. So, and the cop saluted him.
Oh.
And my dad walked back handicapped to the car.
So
So my father was
he was a Vietnam veteran.
Yeah, saying to that he was Vietnam.
I'm telling
So
you.
he was handicapped from Vietnam.
Parents often challenge their children's integrity. And it puts us in a bind. We
Right.
go, my goodness, you told me to do things right, and now you're a Vietnam veteran
Yeah.
with a screw loose, yelling at the cop. So which brother had that experience?
That was Brian.
Brian.
Yeah. So that's my brother from my mom.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, stuff like that stick with you.
Yeah.
My brother likes to tell the story all the time of him and my grandmother. He was the first grandchild.
Okay.
So it was really tight. And he tells the story all the time about going to the grocery store during Thanksgiving. And the turkeys was just simply overpriced. So he said, you know what? All he heard was these turkeys are overpriced. Then she told him, well, put this one in the bucket. He didn't think none of it. Get to the register and the turkey rings up for about $9 or something like that. Some ridiculous price. Grandma had switched those tags. And I said, what did she switch it with? A chicken or a Cornish hen? So he, forever would tell that story because he was like, Grandma put me in the bind.
Uh-huh.
And he said I had to be so cool at that time. So yeah, I can understand how that leaves that indelible mark on, on him.
Yeah.
So it appears we might be close to getting the brother.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Mentrisa is on. Hi, Mentrisa.
How you doing, Mentrisa?
I think good.
Is he close?
Trying to work it out.
Okay.
We'll see.
Well, we'll continue in trying to get one of the siblings on so they can give their perspective of the thing they most admired or a story they may have about the father, Mac, that I now know him to be.
Yeah.
And so we'll continue to kind of just go a little long until we can get him on. But one of the things we talked about, I shared with you an experience I have when people transition and go home to be with the Lord.
Yeah.
And I often, when I don't understand the process at all. I'm a born again believer and I know where they are.
Right.
And I still have that tough separation anxiety or you miss them.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
So it was amazing. I was in a friend's mom's funeral, and the Lord told me to pay a different sort of attention to what was going on, and because I didn't know her well, and so I sat there and I listened to all of the friends and the family tell these stories about her. And they're very impactful in terms of her, not bluntness, I guess you could say bluntness, but certainly assertive about everything. And so he began to let me understand that I have holes and weaknesses in my own personality that others have that I admire. And I now have began to, because I just couldn't stand going to funerals, not because because I'm looking at the hurt and the pain that was it, so it bothers me that way.
Yeah.
But now I sit in those situations and I now take the things that I admire and I kind of apply them to my own personality in the way that I live my life, and it has helped.
Right.
And so that's one of the things I wanted to ask you as well. And we can hold off on that question if he's ready. He's not quite. Okay. So that's the question I'm going to ask you. Out of all the things, great traits that he had, what is that one thing that you could say, if I can exchange a weakness for a strength in a way in which now he be infused in me forever, what would that trait be?
Wow. Speaking up more.
Speaking up more.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something, I think we all have something that we have to grow through, and that, especially after my parents have passed, that's something that was always a challenge for me.
Right.
And lately I've had to think a lot about it, because I've been through an experience after my parents' passing that was just almost as devastating as losing my parents.
Right.
And it's been over a year of me just trying to think about this. And then even when I did interject to speak up, it still was met with some resistance.
Right.
So you kind of, there's kind of a frustration there, because it's like, what's the point? Because here I am finally speaking
Right.
and saying something, and you may not like what I'm saying,
Right.
but at the same time, I'm finally being bigger than my normal
yourself.
self
Mm-hmm.
and speaking up, and it's still not received right away.
No, but you gotta understand.
Or it's looked at
Met
as
with
a-
some resistance.
Yeah, it's met
Well,
with
the great thing about that particular trait, it's one of those things as it's practiced. And a person now can put some distance between the old Rhonda and this new Rhonda with this new trait. It'll be more respected. And it won't be met with so much resistance.
Yeah.
They'll just now say, this is now Rhonda.
Right.
And so
Right.
it's an excellent trait to have, because it does a couple of things. That one in particular, it allows you to live life more without regrets. You have all these encounters and different things where you're out in the public. It could be with a spouse, it could be with somebody else within the family, it could be because you are dealing with the public too in terms of business. It allows you to just say that, whatever that moment is, say exactly. It allows you to slow things down. We talked about that when we were in class, to gain control of it, knowing I'm going to say what's exactly on my mind.
Right.
Tactfully.
Right.
But at least I got it out.
Right.
So not only do you get to move past things better than others without regret, because many people often walk away from situations, I should have said, I should have did.
Right.
So now you have that released. But because you've released it, that particular trait now allows you to live a little more stress-free. It's a pressure that is often released when you say what's on your mind, right? Now you can get to a yes faster. You can get to a no faster. That means all the things you're aspiring to do, because I am now more assertive about saying what's on my mind, I'm able to speed things up a little faster.
That's good. That's good.
Because now I'm not waiting on the next opportunity to say what was on my mind.
Right.
I made good on this opportunity. So that is a huge thing from him that now you can embed in your personality.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, it'll elevate you in many ways. So that's big.
Thank you. Yeah.
I wish the other siblings were here, because that's something I want to ask them as well. And we can ask them later.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that's something that many people need to start practicing, especially when they're grieving and trying to find different ways to cope. I need to adopt something, right? Because whether you know it or not, or whether we know it or not, they pick up things from us too. They live vicariously through our lives.
Yeah.
In many ways, because the child is similar, but then the child has, their own mind and perspectives and different things they want to aspire to attain.
Yeah.
So whether we know it or not, they pick up and they grow as they're going through that maturation process with us, parenting us. So sometimes I guess the kids don't realize, wow, I could take that trait.
Right.
And so I've noticed that that's helped a lot of people. And they don't have to wait, until you lose your parent, if you start thinking of it that way. And then it just becomes a different level of respect for all the things that now you can think about, how he was able to speak up on, let's say, the family's behalf. Because I know that was an awesome thing to have him, kind of stand up for you in certain situations, if those things came about.
Right.
And so now you can think about, I can be that person.
Right.
Yeah, so that is an awesome thing to pick,
Yeah.
to add to this easy going, because that's what you are.
I am. I'm easy going.
Right,
I'm
you easy
laid
going.
back, and sometimes I'm a little too late. But I'm being, and now that I'm stepping out more,
Right.
and I say my hashtags, I'm living my purpose out loud. Okay, good. So I'm having to.
Okay.
Now I'm like, okay, I have to do this now. But it happened so fast. It happened right after my parents passed, and I get back and I'm
Had to deal with this situation.
yeah.
So you don't have that trait honed yet.
Yeah, I don't have
You
it
don't
on
have the
yet.
hands of it
Yeah.
yet. You're not wielding it as
So
a
it
weapon,
was
but you
lot.
will.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was
Y'all
a
in
lot.
trouble next time. She got to say
Just
something. She's just
Sharing
going
my
to say
story.
it. So it appears that we have connection with the brother. Is that right? It's coming? Okay. And so what we're doing now is
There
waiting.
it is.
All
Hey,
right.
Uncle Derek.
It appears we have Derek on the line.
Oh, he's coming. There he is.
What's up?
Hey, bro.
What's going on?
It appears we have Derek on the line. All right, we having a
He
little
said, "What's up?" I
sound
can read his lips.
difficulty.
He said, "What's up?"
I think what might have to happen, we muted one side of the other was muted because of the
Oh,
microphone.
okay.
Somebody hold the camera. Get my beautiful face.
Okay.
One side.
We might be delayed, but I'm turning my iPad up. Is he?
I think we can hear, but we do have a delay.
Yeah, we do have a delay. Okay.
Okay.
Hey, bro, you want to go ahead and share? It's kind of a. You want to go ahead and share?
Yeah, I can share. I I remember my father being very stylish person. He loved his music. He loved to dress. I would be wrong if I did not mention that he got his style from his mother, because his mother loved to dress. I mean, she was a very stylish woman. And then my mother used to always talk about how his grandma called her and after
Yeah, I meant to say.
she would have to wait an hour because it would take my grandmother an hour to get dressed up for the store. And, like my grandmother would go to the store in the hills and dress and everything. So I know for sure my father got that from his mother.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Everything he said. Yeah, and I was going to bring that up too about my grandmother, my father's mother. Yeah, she was definitely a stylish. Yeah, when she went to the
You might
grocery
need your
store.
mic.
Oh.
And what we do is we might, if you can just kind of expound and
Mhm.
repeat what he said,
Yeah.
just so we'll make sure that it's on the tape.
Yes, my grandmother Helen.
And we might want to mute that.
Okay. Again, this is Facebook Live.
We're
It's
doing
raw.
it.
Okay. So just expounding on what my brother Derek just shared about how my dad got his style from his mother, my grandmother Helen. She definitely. I shared a story on my website about how one day my mom and I went to visit her, and at her apartment, and she was in the house. She had just been cleaning and cooking around the house, and just doing stuff around the house. And she was, dressed down, of course, and so she was like, "Come on, y'all, come with me." So we went with her, followed her to the bedroom, and she started dressing up. So she put on this floor-length lavender dress with a split up the side of the leg. Then she put on some real nice set of pearls or whatever, and she put a wig on, a real nice wig on, beat her face with some makeup, and then put on these long, those long satin gloves.
Yeah.
Up the arm. And then she gave my mother the camera. She said, "Come on."
Just like that.
Yeah, and we followed her out to the living room, and she struck a pose, and she was like, "All right, take my picture." And my mom took her picture, and a few days later, we came back, and that photo was sitting on her glass case, like an 8x10.
Did she just take that picture? Was it an occasion, or she just said,
"No, it was just random."
Oh, that's style.
It was it was just random. And now
That's
I'm like,
style.
and now I'm thinking back on that moment, and I'm like, well, now that's what I'm doing with Instagram.
That is style right there.
So if she was still here, I would definitely have her on Instagram.
I mean, everybody else got to work real hard. Like, I got an event. There's a situation.
Right.
Not just a Thursday. It's just a Thursday.
Right. Yeah, she just wanted
So that's awesome.
She wanted that memory. So yeah, that was that creative spark.
Right.
And that's what happens with us as creatives, and me having that, I have that creative spark too, where I just had that spark and I got to get it out.
Right.
And that's what it was for her. She just had that creative spark moment, and she was like, "Oh, I see this." You know, she had the vision in her
Right.
head. She was like, "I'm gonna do this right now." She said, "I got everything I need to do it," and that's what she did.
Oh wow, that's something.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask him also. This is Derek, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I want to ask him the same question that I asked you about. Out of all the traits that he had, you know, what is that one trait you most admire, and the one that you wish you could have yourself? And he can type it. If we got a little delay here, but
They can hear him. We just can't.
okay,
You hear me?
the live can
Okay.
hear him. Okay, that'd
Yeah,
be
the
good.
live can
So
hear
they
him,
can hear you. If you want to share, I like asking that question because people never do know that there's another level to grow. You just often think about the only way I can add to my personality or to my skill set is to go to school or to different things like that, not really realizing I had an experience around someone.
Mm-hmm.
And I just never thought. I often
Well,
laugh with my brother. I mean, my mom is very much so alive, but she's always prompt and on time. I'm like, why can't you accept that particular trait? So I want Derek to kind of give his feedback about that as well.
Okay.
The one he could put to add to himself.
And a lot of people don't mention my father, but my father actually could he could draw. He was a pretty good artist. I think that's the skill I probably admire most about him. That's probably the skill I probably got from him the most. I think all of us picked up on his love for music. But yeah, I used to remember like come home some days and see
You
my
didn't know
father
that.
sketching on the pad and to see some of his drawings and just be amazed and everything. But cause I definitely didn't get blessed with his musical talents. I tried to play the trumpet. I was not very good at playing the trumpet, but I did pick up his artistic ability, I think. So yeah, my father was very creative. Sometimes when I talk to my mother, it's funny because she was talking about how on Saturday he would get up, clean the house, and then he would tell my mother like, "Hey, let's go and shopping, go find some clothes and all that kind of stuff." My mother said, that would be his thing on Saturday. Even sometimes he might have skipped out in the building or something. He was gonna go and buy some new clothes. So that was his thing. So that would be his thing on Saturday. Even sometimes he might have skipped out in the building or something. He was gonna go and buy some new clothes. So that was his thing. That would be his thing on Saturday.
Okay.
And see, that's
See, I didn't.
you didn't know that.
Yeah. See, we all, and I think all of us as siblings, we all, I think we all have a different experience with him. That part I didn't know. I didn't know about his drawing. And Derek draws like.
Oh, he
Derek
does.
Yeah, Derek
Okay.
draws and stuff too. But yeah, I didn't know.
So
that.
Derek, you want to see the drawings?
Do you have some drawings hidden somewhere, bro? that he
I
drew?
got one right here. I was messing around today, but that's one. Yeah, I don't have none of his drawings though.
Thank
But,
you.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, the dad drew that?
Oh no, I did that. I don't have too many of my father's
Okay.
drawings and everything.
Oh,
he
man, that was
just
good.
he would just usually like scribbling in
so-
a
Yeah, so we all
in a
have
notepad.
that creativity
Right.
gene in us.
In a myriad of ways.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It comes
Yeah.
out in different ways. Now, me with music, excuse me, it's interesting for me is that when it comes to music, I even though I don't play music or play an
Mhm.
instrument or anything, but I get so into music that when there's a song that I really enjoy and like, I see a story.
Right.
So I have a vision of a story playing
Oh,
through
wow.
my head when I'm hearing the song, and I'll see I'll even start thinking up a sitcom or a movie or something just by the inspiration of a song.
Right.
Like there's a particular group that I like, and there's a particular album that they did, and every song on the album I loved, and it was like I really started seeing a stage play, and I had initiated writing the stage play. I haven't finished it,
Okay.
but I'm like, okay, God, what does this mean? Because I'm like, I don't know if at some point maybe that part of me will come out as well, because
That's right.
I believe that I know that there's still a lot more creativity in me that's
That's
waiting to come out. So that part of me, when it comes to the connection with music, I have that connection with music, and that I see stories or.
And so one of the great things about your dad is that he put his music, his body of work out there. So
Yeah.
you're doing that through the style and through the shop and different things like that. You definitely got to write that, man.
Yeah.
How far along are you?
Not far enough.
Not far enough?
No, I need to go further. I mean, I've got, how far have I gotten? I think I'm like maybe halfway.
Halfway?
Yeah. But I sat it down for a while. I need to go back and revisit.
And see, it depends on the different types of things you do. And you got this awesome illustrator, with your brother.
Right.
Maybe you two can tag together to do something.
You know what? For some
where
reason,
you put art with the
see
story.
all of us coming together someday doing something, because we all have that creative gene in us, and it comes out in different ways. And I see it all collaborating and come together in one big project. For some reason, I see that.
Right.
I don't know when or how, but for some reason, I see that at some point.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
tremendous talent, like all across the family.
Yeah.
And, you've given some real good feedback about him. I feel like I know a lot more about him from our initial conversation, when we were talking about various things. But now I got a broader picture. And then when brother comes on and says that he was an artist, not just a musician, but he could draw and illustrate. I mean, that.
Right.
See, you're going to keep finding things.
Wow. Yeah.
Right. Like we were talking.
Right.
It's going to be layer upon layer. You're going to continue to find things.
Right.
So, and I think that's important, right? We all, like to find out these things within our family. It gives you this sense of pride. It gives you a different outlook on life and a confidence. All of these things are very important, not just for the children, right? But it's the nieces, the nephews, it's everybody else that get a chance to now understand a little bit more.
Right.
Because sometimes we only know our parents just by that title, mom or dad. And it's so important to see all those complex layers that we were talking about at the beginning of the interview. Right. So that's a cool thing. I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
Dad. So how are we doing on time?
Yeah. Where are we now? I know that, because that hour can go by really quick.
54.
Okay. 54 minutes. Okay, so we got about 5-6 more minutes.
5 or 6 more minutes.
Okay.
So the main thing too, when we you asked me to do this, I asked you, what was the main thing you wanted your audience to get out of this? Because there's so many things you can get out of this, right? Sometimes people don't know how to admire their parents. They take them for granted. Some truly admire their parents. And of course, in a situation where they lose them, they don't know how to cope with the loss, right? So from your vantage point, if you could help your audience with any one particular thing in terms of this interview, what do you feel you want to give them in terms of two things? How to admire your parent. Number two, how to cope if you happen to lose one or both of your parents.
I would say, as far as admiring your parents, acknowledging what they left in you, what you inherited from them, and then take that and live that out in your life in whatever way is you find to fulfill that.
Right.
And then, what was your second question?
So the first one was how to admire them, right? And the second one was dealing with, if you find yourself where you've lost a parent, how do you cope with that?
For me, coping with it, it's like for me, being I'm a Christian, I'm a believer. I know where they are.
Right.
So for me, helping me was knowing where they are, and really not seeing that as some fable or something, but that's
right.
Really
it's real.
It's real.
Right.
And since their passing, I've had dreams about both of them, and those experiences, it was like I was actually there with
Mm-hmm.
them. So that's how I remember them. That's how I
Right.
see them there. They're not any longer in their bodies suffering, going through the illnesses,
Right.
but they're well. They're more alive and
Right.
more well than we are,
Mhm.
you know.
That's right.
Because they're in heaven. So their bodies are perfect. They're not dealing with any of this. So
And that's huge.
yeah, because of course, you know, we have that human side to us. So there are moments that things that may come up.
Oh,
where
yeah.
I'll have a memory. Like, I don't like to see or hear anything about nursing homes because it takes me
Correct.
back to my dad being in a nursing home and thinking about that part of him.
Mm-hmm.
And anything about my mom that brings back what she was going through. So
You're
So
able
those-
to just see them healthy.
yeah, so that's how I'm able. I can look at that and keep moving.
Right.
I see them there, having healthy, good, all is well.
That's right.
You know,
And I think that's fitting
Yeah.
because of the part in this interview where you told me about when he approached you about accepting Christ. Mm-hmm. And you said I wasn't ready, but certainly you're ready now.
Right.
But because of even that moment, you can think about around that time frame, he had set himself up so that when he would transition, you will have an opportunity to basically understand he's still alive and he's somewhere healthy. And that's so important, right?
Right.
So, you know, that's one of the things that for your audience that would see this,
Yeah.
that it's an opportunity, just like when he came to you, that maybe you also can say, hey, are you ready to
Right.
accept Christ or accept that higher power so that one of the things that allow you to cope, that others, you know, you got this opportunity to grieve differently, the word says. So I think that's a really good way maybe to end.
Yeah, exactly.
To say that, you know what, one of the greatest ways in the world to cope with something that's so
Yeah.
impactful. You lose this awesome person for a moment,
Yeah.
but you understand that they're somewhere else abiding with God, you know, fully healthy, laughing, and just their full greatness because their personality is on display,
Right.
because they're not worrying about anything. And so that's an awesome thing. So I think that's a great takeaway from this interview.
Right, exactly. I mean, if it because I've been asked, you know, how did you get through all of this?
Mhm.
How losing your parents back to back like this? And I said, it's God.
Right.
Yeah. You
That
know?
can carry you through it.
Yeah.
And it's true.
Yeah.
I don't know if you technically can say I'm strong enough to be able to deal with it.
Right.
Because it's hard to make sense of it all.
It is.
And so without
It
God
is.
and that perspective, then of course you can't celebrate him.
Exactly.
And so that's what I
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
about from the moment you asked me to come on with you, is that we know that we have an opportunity to celebrate him
Right.
instead of grieving
Right.
and being sad. So that's an
Exactly.
awesome thing.
Exactly.
All right.
Thank you, bro. Oh, hi, Omar. My nephew Omar is on here. Hey, Omar.
All right, good
Adrian
deal.
McGee, and so everyone. I just had to check to see who else was on, but so you know, I just wanted to have this special time to dedicate to my dad and to share what we just shared here at the end. So, you know, cherish every moment that you have with your parents, and
Yep.
if you have the opportunity to sit down and talk with them and just talk about life, talk about their life, what their life was like, or whatever they want to share, whatever there is that there's an opportunity for you to talk about and get to know more about your family, your
Right.
lineage, and what you've inherited from them and so forth. Have that conversation, because, you know, there are a lot of things now that I didn't get to talk about that I wish I
Right.
had. So,
This is a great interview.
yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
for having
Thank
me.
you. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
So thank you everyone for tuning in, and we've got some exciting things coming soon with Style by God. We've got the Style by God for Men line, t-shirt line coming out, so it's a really hot item just in time for Father's Day, so look for the promo for that coming to you very soon. So just be on the lookout. I'll be putting out, y'all know I put out those promo videos real quick, so it's coming soon. So thank you again, and stay tuned for the next episode of Style by God, Style for a Purpose, coming in July. All right.
Have a good one.
Thank you.